She's a passionate advocate of mobile health and mobile learning, and she cooperates with multi-stakeholders to build partnership projects, especially in the field of diabetes. Florence, we are very happy to have you here with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by thanking Lynn Kleinweil and the DESG for having invited me to be part of this. As you mentioned, I am indeed a passionate advocate of the intersection actually of mobile health and education, and so it's a real pleasure to be able to speak to you about this subject today. So Lynn asked me to set the scene a little bit on where we stand with mobile technology. I'm part of a company called Alcatel-Lucent, which focuses on telecom infrastructure, and it wasn't until, in fact, I entered this world about 4 or 5 years ago, this world of technology and connectivity, that I myself realized really the potential there was going to be in the years to come for health and education and things that are related to digital, but specifically my big uncovery was the mobile revolution. So let me start by giving you a few numbers that sort of give you the reality of where we stand today. We have close to 7 billion mobile connections today in the world, which is close to the world population. And the penetration rates are 128% in the developed world and 89% in developing countries. It's expected, for example, in Africa that we should have about 85% penetration by next year. So it's quite astounding. We've never in the history of mankind have had a communication technology as pervasive and ubiquitous as this one. It opens up immense possibilities in terms of reaching out to people that we can never reach to before. And of course, this has great significance in the field of health and education to health. You see the numbers in 2013. In fact, in 2014, we're expected to get to 7 billion connections, if we haven't already. So here are a few other numbers just to sort of anchor that concept. Of course, 3G and 4G networks are expanding exponentially. We're now in the 4G phase, and 4G is a technology that's going to allow you, and it already is allowing in a number of places, communication that's going to be extremely smooth. You won't get the interruptions that you still experience a little bit with 3G. Now what's interesting to know is this 4G technology is being developed already in countries in Africa. So it's right around the corner. Another significant point that I want to make in this slide is that a lot of people, again, it's a little bit less significant in the developed world, but in the developing country world, a lot of people working on mobile health are still under the impression that they need to work only with SMS and simple phones. Well, it's right around the corner that the smartphones are going to be everywhere. And in fact, penetration rate, for example, of smartphones in Nigeria are already 41%. The other significant aspect here is that more and more people are actually indeed connecting. We were predicting this, but the reality is now here, via their mobile phone versus a computer. And of course, again, this is all the more so true in places where computers are less prevalent. So if you take computer penetration in sub-Saharan Africa, it usually averages under less than 1%. So what happens, then you get places like Senegal, where 90% of the people who actually connect to the internet do it via their mobile device. So again, this is not, I keep saying, you know, the idea of having a very intelligent computer in everyone's pocket in the world is no longer a futuristic vision and a vision of the future. It is almost here, and we need to get ready for that. And I speak especially, I think, to the health world here today, because I think these opportunities became evident more quickly in the technology world. And this is what happened to me when I entered it 5 years ago, because every morning I was seeing these statistics. But I think it's taking a little bit longer to the health world to realize that this is happening. But I think we need to accelerate the movement because this cannot happen without the health world really coming on board and seeing what this opportunity is. This is just another very quick slide to show that people are also ready. This is a study that was done last year by GSMA and PwC, and they tested out people readiness basically. So healthcare providers, when they were asked if mHealth solutions could convey health benefits, close to 90% of them said yes. And then you can see that patients and consumers also responded in a very positive manner. I give a little quote on this slide here from Eric Topol. For anyone who has not read this book, which actually came out last summer, it's a very good read. It's called The Creative Destruction of Medicine, and it really explains well what I think we're going to be seeing happening in the next 20 years. Another interesting little tidbit here is that, in fact, education and healthcare application downloads are more prevalent and stronger than any other sort of application field in the past few years. So that again shows that people are ready for this. This is another interesting little data here. This is a survey that was done by GSMA last summer. GSMA is the Association of Mobile Operators in the world, based out of the UK. And you can see here the number of mobile health projects that were in the world at the time. They don't necessarily have a visibility perhaps on everything, but nevertheless it gives you a good picture. And you can see that in Europe there were about 117 projects. Now look down at the Africa box and you see 363 projects. I won't stay on this, but one should know that again, because of the statistics I was giving you earlier, you know, the 1% penetration of computers in sub-Saharan Africa, we're seeing tremendous innovation coming actually out of developing and emerging countries on these mobile health solutions. And that is something that one should keep in mind when working in this field. Now the scene on mobile health applications versus projects is very different. As you can see, most of them are coming out of North America. There's close to 4,000 applications. This is out of a report and research that was published early this year, so this is very recent data. In Europe, a little bit less, and you can see that the application world is not what is prevalent currently in Africa, as there were only 21 that were looked at. So, to remember is that these applications have doubled in the past 2.5 years, so we're seeing an acceleration of all this happening. But also, are they really reaching people? And in fact, only the top 5% of these 100,000 apps have reached more than 500,000 persons. So 100,000 applications may sound impressive, but you have to keep the reality of how much people are actually using these. So in fact, yeah, another number is 82% of the apps generate less than 50,000 downloads. And this is something that we're going to probably talk about this afternoon. One of the big challenges, of course, of mobile health in general has been its ability to scale up. There's tremendous amounts of small projects and pilots that are showing great evidence already, but everyone needs to move to the next stage now and try to scale it up. So just a few, setting the scene a little bit on mobile health and diabetes. Here's a slide that shows a little bit the disparity of health mobile services compared to the actual diseases. So I underline specifically, of course, the yellow here is the diabetes. So you can see that in Europe, it's fairly developed on the diabetes front. But in fact, in Africa, you see the small line here is very little, which is very worrisome, of course, because as some of you may know, 80% of the deaths in diabetes currently occur in emerging and developing countries. And there's, of course, a great lack of training and health infrastructure to deal with this in Africa. And here's a little more information also on specifically diabetes and mobile health applications. So out of the 100,000 that we were talking a little bit about earlier, there's about a little over 1,000 applications on diabetes. But yes, there's a little information missing here, but the 1.6 million is the users, the people who are actually using these 1,000 apps, which only constitutes about 1.2% of the potential diabetes patients who actually own a smartphone or a tablet. So this is significant, and what we should retain from this is that we've barely scratched the surface. We're really only at the beginning. So you shouldn't be impressed by the number of apps, because again, it's like how many people have actually adopted them. And the other point that the Research to Guidance report showed also is that most of these applications actually don't meet the best practice standards and fall way below the patient's expectations also. A lot of the data still needs to be entered manually, etc., etc. So again, the message here is we have a lot of work ahead of us, because again, we're just at the beginning. And I think we're going to delve into this a little bit more while the discussion goes on here this afternoon. But the multi-stakeholder approach and getting everyone involved is very relevant and very important in the field of mobile health, namely patients, health professionals, industry, governments, associations, regulatory bodies, etc. Just a couple of words on this. I won't stay on it because Ani Iskandar from ITU is going to be speaking in this session a little bit later and is going to explain further the Be Healthy, Be Mobile initiative from ITU WHO. But this is a project that was launched here in July, and UNFM is a very important partner, and Dr. Kleinwald has been absolutely instrumental in implementing this project in Senegal. It was a pre-launch that we did in July, and it was around diabetes and Ramadan. And again, this is very much done in a multi-stakeholder partnership format that at Alcatel-Lucent we really believe is the answer for scaling projects, or one of the answers anyhow. And just very quickly, some visuals on the launch of this project, which generated, by the way, considerable press to everyone's surprise. I think it generated over 150 articles when we weren't really even seeking attention, because we were talking about a pre-launch. So it just gives us an idea of how relevant actually this is and how ready people actually are for this. And there's a picture of one of the messages that was sent out. It was, of course, had a lot to do with preventing problems around fasting and diabetes. So thank you very much for your attention.